We have to be smart in this country. We've been taken to the cleaner by and I mean with allies, not just with the enemies, with allies. Frankly, the allies have taken us much more so than the enemies. The enemies we don't do business with. We didn't have a trade deal with China. They came in and they took $500 billion a year for many years, but anywhere from $200 to $550 billion a year out of our hides.
So much to cover today. A lot of it's focused on China and some of the things that are going on there, and also covering more of the fake news media in Hollywood. The world we live in today is in flux, filled with a flood of information that's often as much gossip as fact, making it hard to know what the real situation is. Make it easy for people to panic and make bad decisions. So use My Patriot Supply today to prepare. A great place to start is storing food in your home. I'm prepared and ordered even more recently. Take action so you're ready. Save $70 on a 2-week emergency food kit. Visit the description box below. Prepare with andweknow.com today.
Go ahead.
Hello. A smile can be very contagious. You can catch it like the flu. Someone smiled at me today, and I started smiling too. And when I went around the corner, this guy seen my grin. And when he started smiling, I knew I passed it on to him. Then I got to thinking just what a smile is worth. A smile like ours could travel all around the earth. So if you feel a smile coming on, don't keep it undetected. Smile at someone next to you and we'll get the whole darn world infected.
Ah, woo!
Wasn't that wonderful? Thank you so much at QTAnon1 for that. Definitely put a smile on my face and much needed in this time that we are going through together. We are at 296,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much. If you go to andweknow.com, all you have to do is scroll below the videos and put your email in the email box right there, and you'll receive notifications when our videos are uploaded. You can check your spam folder for replies from KW for our emails. Those that are contacting us, contact at andweknow.com, or simply scroll to the bottom of our website and click the email. Thank you for going to our site and getting these fabulous shirts and coffee cups and what have you. It's been wonderful. And if you go to @andweknow on Twitter and also Facebook, we finally have some help from Robert Stone. So if you notice recently, the president's been talking longer and longer, it seems like, on these daily press briefings. One of the things that I try to cue in as the big ones for me, this one right here, I noticed if Trump fixed everything with a pill, they would still attack him. Check this out.
But remember this, we're dealing in politics. We're dealing with a thing called November 3rd of this year. Do you know what November 3rd represents, right? You know better than anybody in the room. November 3rd of this year, it's called the presidential election. No matter what I do, no matter where we go, no matter how well we do, no matter what, if I came up with a tablet, you take it and this plague is gone, they'll say Trump did a terrible job, terrible, because that's their soundbite. That's the political soundbite. They know the great job we've done. But with all of that being said, and also there is a thing that somebody could talk to if they want, but I don't want to bore you with it. Not everybody believes we should do so much testing. You don't need so much. We're talking about maximum. The reason that the Democrats and some others, maybe because they don't know, They want maximum because they want to be able to criticize. Because it's almost impossible to get to the maximum number, and yet we've been able to do it already. But with that, and you'll be seeing this over the next, I think, over the next couple of weeks or sooner, we have a test. If it comes out, it'll revolutionize the whole world of testing. It'll be something really special.
So absolutely amazing that he points that out, that it's basically based on the election, and they're going to attack him no matter what. Thank you for pointing that out. Well, Sean Hannity's been putting out a lot of information. I see a lot of folks, of course, we're looking at Fox News. I don't think that everyone at Fox News is bad. I've enjoyed listening to Sean for a long time. Most folks try to find something wrong with each reporter. With Sean Hannity, he constantly puts out information over and over and over again. It sounds like the same thing, but that's what the fake news does to us. They bash our heads over with lies. I like what Sean does, is that constant reminder helps me when I start talking to others about what they are up to. The fake news, sick, demonic media.
Even during a national emergency, the mob never changes. They will even politicize a virus because they so hate Donald Trump. That's how sick they are. But meanwhile, we have their timeline. March 8th, fake news, CNN, it's Trump's Katrina. Yeah, in the middle of Trump getting the supplies together. March 9th, Washington Post. This is Eric Pimple's paper, calling it Donald Trump's Chernobyl. March 12th, when President Trump extended the travel ban to Europe, the mob slammed him for infecting international relations. March 13th, when the president declared a national emergency, Time magazine called it an admission of failure. March 19th, fake news CNN claiming Trump's lack of imagination was costing American lives and treasure. March 30th, the Boston Globe, not to be undone by anyone else in the mob, accusing the president of having blood on his hands. April 8th, the psychos over at MSDNC that live in that whole altered universe of theirs, they had one of their paid commentators and hosts saying that tens of thousands of people will die because of Trump's coronavirus incompetence. April 11th, New York Times, very same paper, encouraging Americans to travel to China after the travel ban. Dumb that they are. They wrote that Trump should have seen the virus coming. He did the ban 10 days after the first case. You, 6 days later, were telling people it's safe to travel to China. Yikes. Monday, very angry MSDNC. By the way, former McCain for president liberal, Steve Schmidt, totally lost his mind. Steve, what's happened to you? Take a look.
More than 40,000 Americans are dead. This didn't have to be so. It's so because of the ineptitude of the White House response. 4 years on from the promise of I'll make America great again and I alone can fix it, we can survey now the wreckage and the magnitude of the disaster in this country that has been wrought by the Trump presidency. The ineptitude of the federal government shows everybody around the world, from ally to adversary, what a clown show American governance has become.
It's sad, predictable, this kind of rhetoric, really, in the middle of a national emergency. It has real consequences. The mob and the media, their breathless effort from day one of the presidency of Donald Trump, literally make him into a villain. Lie, smear, slander, hoax, conspiracy, they did it all. They're totally letting the world's worst bad actor get off the hook.
The worst bad actors get off the hook. Speaking of bad actors, did you see this? At Now This News put this out on Twitter. Update: the GOP-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee has released a new report, yet again confirming, here we go, Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help elect Trump, reconfirming the conclusions of both the U.S. intelligence community and the Mueller investigation. Here's a review. So, we've got our favorite ones: Robert De Niro, Martin Sheen, Christine Letty, Rob Reiner, just a wonderful guy, isn't he? George Takei, well, Stephen King right there in the middle, Lawrence Fishburne, Sophia Bush, Jonathan Van Ness, and Rosie Perez at the front lines there. I don't want to play it. I don't want to hear their voice. I'll show you as it's playing now on my computer. Basically, what's happening is they keep switching. Thank you to CJ Truth for posting this. And basically, they're just making their remarks once again because they have nothing else left. They are so desperate. They want to use everything. They're going to throw all rounds down range to try to get out of the predicament that's headed their way. So what's the definition of a sellout? That comes from inevitable_ET. He posted this. Hollywood has a $9 billion reason to not blame China for the coronavirus. That's from a Breitbart.com article. Trump bashing Hollywood figures from film stars to studio executives have been conspicuously silent when it comes to China. That's right. Trump bashing Hollywood figures from film stars to studio execs. They've been silent when it comes to China as evidence mounts that China dictators sought to hide the true gravity of the coronavirus outbreak and silence doctors who tried to speak out. As Hollywood continues to shift to ever more expensive tentpole movie releases, the major studios are releasing Chinese moviegoers to turn a profit. But to gain access to the world's second largest movie market, they have to first play nice with China's film officials, who control which foreign titles get to play in the country's more than 60,000 cinemas. That's 60,000 places to go to the movies in China. Well, movie stars looking to find work in Hollywood need only glance at the figures to know that staying quiet about China is good for their careers and their coffers. The Chinese box office has skyrocketed in the past 10 years. Officials claim that Chinese cinemas brought in $9.2 billion last year, compared to $910 million a decade ago. That's a huge shift. Last year, former Rep. John Culberson, Republican Texas, asked the Justice Department to look into Chinese investment in Hollywood, saying that multi-billion-dollar acquisitions allow Chinese state-controlled companies a significant degree of control over the financing and, get this, the content of American media that raises serious concerns about how this may be used for propaganda purposes. And if you watch this guy right here, Batista, he's behind some of it. Take Disney's Guardians of the Galaxy star, Dave Batista. He's attacked President Donald Trump for his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. As one of Hollywood's most prominent anti-Trump voices, Batista has fired off tweets insulting the commander-in-chief's daily press briefings and recently called quarantine protesters, quote, morons for seeking to reopen state economies. So we morons, those that are, supporters of Trump, that's really what he's pointing to, support him, go to the movies, pay for the tickets, watch this guy, and then look how he treats our president. And I'm sure folks will continue to go to the theaters after all this. It reminds me of the Q632 post, Hollywood PsyOps. Who controls HW, Hollywood? Who really controls HW? Why are movies made to glorify past true events? What is a PSYOP? You're being controlled. Sheep, up is down, left is right. Revolution, truth, trust the mission. Q. So, as we move forward, I wanted to show you something from Spectre's. I'm probably going to have to manipulate the video quite a bit with sound and voice. Very interesting. Had a very dark scene where 007 walks into a scene in Rome, and it appears to be those that belong to the demonic side that we're fighting, those that seem to run the entire world under the guise of their worship of Satan, Lucifer. But this is what he said, caught on to it. The latest figures show that we presently control 70% of anti-malarial vaccines, 34% of HIV, and 40% of all drugs across sub-Saharan Africa. but face challenges from the WHO on the campaign against our counterfeit pharmaceuticals. We have now identified the key individuals to target. We expect the same success as we had against the Council on Human Trafficking. Coincidence that lines like that are in a movie? Talking about Hollywood and how they have psyops and what they do to our mind and how sometimes they tell us the truth in plain sight, hidden in plain sight, right? So we continue. Let's watch this. The GOP governor, Georgia governor, on relaxing COVID-19 restrictions seems like he's under attack. He's on the front lines getting ready to open up Georgia.
You know, everybody in this country is going to be watching your state because you're one of the most aggressive and the earliest in this process. And you've got, you know, mayors in Albany and mayors in Atlanta who are very much against this. So you guys are almost going to be, you know, and I hope that you are making the right decision and that it keeps people healthy.
Yeah. Well, I would argue if you take out Albany out of the situation right now, our state is a much different place. Because of a person going to a funeral a month and a half ago when people didn't know that that was not a good thing to do, Albany's had more deaths, I'm pretty sure in saying this, than Atlanta has. So, you know, you have to be relative with the data that you're looking at. You know, I'm looking at it every day, every hour of every day. And I know in Albany, their hospital down there is now taking patients from other areas. So that tells you we're in a good space down there because we reacted quickly to a really bad situation, and we're prepared to continue to do that around the rest of our state.
Yep. I mean, very quickly, if you can, you're the home of the Delta Airlines hub in Atlanta. So how are you going to deal with Delta Airlines there? And we know the president is talking about closing the borders for immigration. Are you concerned that, you know, you're going to get your house in order and people are just going to keep, you know, flying through Atlanta and bringing things from other places?
Well, I would tell people the great state of Georgia's taken a lot of people from around the country. Our state, when nobody else would, was taking cruise ship passengers in a very tough situation, and we were glad to work with the president and the vice president to do that. We've worked with our airport as we've had other cruise passengers that have been flown into our state, and we had to transport them to other places. And I can tell you that is a well-run airport. They handled those situations great. We have great communication with them. Their general manager is on my task force, and we'll continue to deal with those type situations, working with the president, working with the vice president, the task force, the guidance that we're getting from CDC, and that's what we're going to be asking our Georgia business owners to do, as well as our hardworking employees in this state.
Well, we certainly wish you and the people of Georgia luck and health, and we hope that this sort of early experiment in reopening is hugely successful because everybody in the country wants to get back open, wants to get back to work. But we certainly hope that we don't see a resurgence in Georgia. That's the last thing anyone wants to see.
Measured approach.
All right, Governor, I hope you'll come back and let us know how it's
So
going.
Martha McCollum seems like she talks as if she cares, but the way she words it, she might as well be working for all these other MSDNCs and others. I just don't like her tone. I don't like the way she's talking and asking the questions. So Senator Lindsey Graham chimed in, who hails from South Carolina, right up the border, said Tuesday that he's worried Georgia is moving too fast, too soon. Well, right, Senator Lindsey Graham, tell us what you think about the WHO, too.
I'm trying to stay 6 feet away from my refrigerator, but I'm losing that battle. So another Chick-fil-A meal here. Just want to say thank you for joining me. I'll try to give you some up-to-date information and take a few questions. And, you know, until we get back to normal, we're going to be doing more of this. I miss being out on the trail, meeting people in person, but those days will be back with us. We got a ways to go, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel. To the World Health Organization, we need one. They've got great scientists there, but the leadership I've lost confidence in. They've been too apologetic for China. It's time now to get new leadership. If you had a guy like Bill Gates leading the World Health Organization, I would increase funding, but I've lost confidence in.
You, Chiz MAGA, for posting this. Definitely an eye-opener. Very strange why he would want Bill Gates to run the WHO and then fund him even more, give him more money. He could pay for it on his own. That is so awkward coming from him. Or maybe it's not awkward. Maybe folks already knew that about him. Well, Josh Creeman's Dirty Truth put this out. A nice report from Ingram Angle had the Stanford professor on that did the antibodies test that shows the fatality rate is not as bad as what they first thought.
Author, Professor John Ioannidis, joins us now. Professor, it's great to have you on tonight. This new research from USC and the LA Department of Public Health show that the true infection rate is as much as 4% of LA County's population has already been infected with the virus. What does that mean for the next steps?
It means that we have far more people who are infected with the virus than we thought previously. And this is just one study. There's multiple studies that corroborate this finding. Of course, any of these studies alone is subject to scrutiny, and it needs to be carefully peer-reviewed by other scientists. But the totality of the evidence from data that we have in California, that we are sampling also in Italy, in Germany, in other locations around the world with antibody studies, as well as assessments of blood donor studies in Netherlands and in Denmark, as well as PCR universal screening in women who come to deliver in New York hospitals and in shelters and in air carriers and in other places. All of that evidence points to an infection that is very common, that typically is very mild. Most people have no symptoms. They don't recognize that they have the infection. But at the same time, there are people and there are settings where the infection can be devastating. So we have a more complete picture of the full iceberg that is evolving, and probably a better understanding with better science, because science is the best thing that can happen to humans. And if we have good data, we can use science to really act decisively.
So a common thing. So listen to this as we continue.
It was a rush to lock down because you couldn't risk millions of people dying. So what lessons do we learn going forward here?
I think the initial decisions which were going for shelter in place and lockdown were fully justified. You know, the estimates that we had at that time were based on very limited information. The best scientists in the world the best calculations possible. They're not to be blamed if they could not get it right, if they had data that were unreliable. So they were perfectly correct in going to make these decisions that were very aggressive. Right now, we have a more nuanced picture. We realize that we're dealing with a serious problem. We have a serious enemy. That virus can be lethal, but we know specifically how it can be lethal. We know that it can be lethal when it attacks elderly individuals, people with underlying diseases, people who are disadvantaged, populations who unfortunately we have neglected in this country and many other countries, poor people without health insurance, for example. They also attack hospitals that can get contaminated. Many of our hospitals are not prepared to deal with crisis, even in summertime. They can be war zones, and these hospitals were badly hit. I mean, several places in New York, for example. Doctors and nurses, they can get contaminated, and we need to try to avoid that because the infection usually has no symptoms. So it's very difficult to tell that someone is infected and avoid being exposed to that person. Mm-hmm. We need to focus our efforts on trying to really salvage hospitals that are under major threat, some other locations and settings like nursing homes, chronic care facilities. We need to protect vulnerable individuals, elderly, those who are sick, those who are in the hospital. You know, many people get infected in the hospital rather than the community. And at the same time, reassure the large majority of the population that their risk of dying or getting severe disease from COVID-19 is very low. It is not null. I don't want to say that there's no problem at all, but for the vast majority of the population, it is something that we should have less fear, and we should be open to deal with it and take steps towards reopening our society with science and with data and with careful steps.
How about that, huh? Very interesting. And there's some other folks out there around the world that are pretty much saying the same thing. Stanford professor says the lockdown was fully justified, but they went off the data they had back then. What kind of data are they using? At the plan, at the PLQN said they can't even keep the lies straight anymore. Clearly, Gates Foundation is dictating the rules for the CDC. Watch this slip up from Dr. Birx.
Do we have enough infrastructure to contact trace the way that we need to?
I think that's why the criteria that you can see the Gates that are that the federal government has recommended are.
Do we have a?
Did you hear that? So she goes through and she says, I think that's why the criteria that you can see the Gates, she slipped, and then that the federal government has recommended. She continues to have her videos posted of her eyes blinking pretty funny at these daily press briefings. A lot of folks think it's some type of Morse code. Very interesting. You can catch that if you happen to know how to do Morse code. We'd love to have somebody translate that, but not today anyway. Truth Hammer 888. Amazing stuff that he puts out. Why is the MSM suddenly in hardcore anti-hydroxychloroquine mode? HCQ destroys the narrative, right? Very obviously coordinated. They're coordinating this attack. 4 a.m. talking points, much? Well, we know the 4 a.m. talking points is what sent out from the demonic beings to all of their owned media to put out the same information to push out to the public. Because we're all sheep. They want to manipulate our minds. The enemy of the people. So let's read a couple of these. No benefits, more deaths in COVID-19 patients treated with malaria drug hydroxychloroquine studies, Chicago Tribune. Business Insider said there's no benefit. Associated Press, more deaths, no benefit. COVID-19 treatment, hydroxychloroquine showed no benefit, more deaths in VA virus study. Fox News, huh? Atlanta Journal-Constitution, new study shows no benefit. More deaths, no benefit. NBC News, Washington Times, Raleigh News and Observer, Mercury News, Tampa Bay Times, the Boston Globe, Forbes, Market Watch, the Salt Lake Tribune, Yahoo, Syracuse.com, Philadelphia Inquirer, KHOU 11, the Daily Beast. Study of Trump-promoted coronavirus drug finds more deaths, no benefits. I also saw this from Lisa Crowley. She put this one out also. Amazing. Truth Hammer continues. This thread may add data for those who need it. HCQ is generic, won't make big dollars for big pharma. The HCQ will cure other chronic conditions and reveal that Big Pharma and MSM, the media, knowingly suppressed an effective, cheap, safe medicine. Built right in, there's billions in hush money for the MSN every year. Nobody in power wanted to see chronic diseases cured unless the treatment could create an even more profitable new disease. It's a good explanation of how Big Pharma kills cures. What happens now when millions of people with supposedly incurable chronic conditions get better because they took hydroxychloroquine? Unexplainable miracle? Does this explain why governors risked everything by banning it? Game theory, only two ways to go. Do they admit that they were evil all along or pretend they didn't know? Many will pretend to be shocked, including MSM and governors. Big Pharma will take the blame. Some governors won't run for re-election. And remember, here's another reminder. There's a billionaire pharmaceutical company founder Barry and his wife Honey Sherman were murdered in their Toronto home December 5th, 2017. They owned Apotex, a manufacturer of generic drugs, specifically hydroxychloroquine. They manufactured the drug. Huh. Very interesting. So the same families that own big media, the big pharma is in lockstep with corporate media. They're pushing hard. It's probably coincidence that the anti-HCQ study they are pushing includes people who are hoping to sell an alternative for big dollars. Isn't that interesting? Dr. Joe Piasecki said one of the authors works for Gilead Sciences, who's developing a competing drug that costs $1,000 a pill and is on patent. Do you see what's going on, folks? Man, it's great to have Anons out there. Folks working hard to get us great information. So Truth Hammer 888 continued with some China information. To the police districts using China's drones, don't tell us they aren't taking pictures, etc. You have no idea what software is on those drones. They can be updated remotely. They have backdoor access. Don't trust China, and if you do, don't ask U.S. to trust you. So check this out. They've got surveillance using drones with Chinese technology.
Warrior also thought the drones were a critical tool for police, but that was 10 days ago. Apparently, after a closer look, Velikovich changed his tune, quoting here, "Should people be concerned? Yes, everyone should always be concerned. You can never trust China." Many others are also concerned that China, whom many blame for the pandemic, is being allowed to use a powerful espionage tool in the skies above its economic rival. In fact, in 2017, the Department of Homeland Security warned that DJI was, quote, selectively targeting government and privately owned entities within these sectors to expand its ability to collect and exploit sensitive U.S. data. And in 2019, the U.S. Interior Department grounded its entire fleet of DJI drones, fearing China was using them to gather data on critical U.S. infrastructure. The Chinese government also used drones to patrol the streets of Wuhan, making sure people remained locked inside their homes.
Pretty sick, huh? Reminding me of Q1337. Facebook is listening to you 24/7, 365, literally. Are they recording safe housing? Metadata collection? China, 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 Q. Just sort of related. Anyway, we continue, Truth Hammer. China builds backdoors into everything. Remember this, 17 sources in government and industry confirmed a massive wide-scale hack by China into computer boards. Is China really using Huawei to hack the world's communications? This company is one of the largest smartphone manufacturers, but countries are banning its tech after security concerns have been raised. What's going on? Well, in recent months, national security agencies around the world have raised concerns that the Chinese telecoms giant may have very close links to the Chinese government. So close, in fact, that they worry its technologies may contain backdoors to bolster the superpowers' spying powers. Bones at BS Scott 40 put this in, remember Bloomberg Business Week, the big hack, how China used a tiny chip to infiltrate U.S. companies. The attack by Chinese spies reached almost 30 U.S. companies, including Amazon and Apple, by compromising America's technology supply chain, according to extensive interviews with government and corporate sources. And also we had this, 5G Action praises reports UK may scrub Huawei. After all, 5G Action is rooting for reports that a hard line may be forming in the UK against allowing that company as part of its 5G network. I thought this was interesting. The Trump administration had advised the country, UK, to ban Huawei from its 5G network as a security risk and warned that if not, the U.S. would have trouble sharing the data across that network. I believe that our president is fighting against the 5G that folks are scared of and we're putting out information about. And I believe he's working on a solution. More to come on that. Well, Lisa Mae Crowley put this out. Tyranny isn't much fun, is it, America? Speaking on watching us and what we're up to. A mother's arrested in Meridian, Idaho for letting kids play in park.
You gotta be kidding me. Why? Wait.
Move out of my way.
Wait, where your head?
As a person, does this make sense to you? As a person, not as a police officer, as a person, does this make sense to you?
So I don't know all the background on this. Don't know if there was a lot of fighting going on or what actually happened in the background. But folks are getting frustrated. So the president put this out. Harvard should give back the money now. Their whole endowment system should be looked at. They accepted money, $9 million for the coronavirus aid package when it was $40 billion endowment. So he's going after him. And it reminded me of this Q post that we had, Q3842. Why is China Qatar donating vast sums of money to our education institutions? Is it really so hard to believe F actors were able to bribe those in key positions within the U.S. to betray their country? And that's including these guys, because look on the right, Bloomberg, thank you, scot-free. Even the fake news pegs it's at $1 billion. Harvard leads U.S. colleges that received $1 billion from China. Is that right? They're the leaders in receiving China's money. USC Penn also land gifts or contracts. And more than 100 schools were recipients despite rising tensions. Boy, there's a lot of money floating around from China to these folks. And remember the Harvard University professor, Dr. Charles Lieber? Was arrested this morning, charged by criminal complaint. That was January 28th, 20. So we continue with what the president had to say.
Harvard's going to pay back the money, and they shouldn't be taking it. So Harvard's going to. You have a number of, I'm not going to mention any other names, but when I saw Harvard, they have one of the largest endowments anywhere in the country, maybe in the world, I guess, and they're going to pay back that money.
Largest in the world. And he also paused immigration for, I believe it's 60 days.
As we all know, millions of Americans sacrificed their jobs in order to battle the virus and save the lives of our fellow citizens. We have a solemn duty to ensure these unemployed Americans regain their jobs and their livelihoods. Therefore, in order to protect American workers, I will be issuing a temporary suspension of immigration into the United States. You heard about that last night. By pausing immigration, we'll help put unemployed Americans first in line for jobs as America reopens. So important. It would be wrong and unjust for Americans laid off by the virus to be replaced with new immigrant labor flown in from abroad. We must first take care of the American worker. Take care of the American worker.
Very interesting, because we get this reminder. Jeff Sessions put this out this week. I called on the federal government to immediately halt immigration to the United States until Americans are back to work. Inevitable ET said, remember this, do you trust Q? Don't forget, it was Sessions who appointed Durham on the very day Q first posted, October 28th, 2017. Optics are for them. Trust Sessions, right? Q1122, trust Sessions, trust Ray, trust Kansas, trust Horowitz, trust Huber. Q.
For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we come to you now just thanking you so much for what you continue to do to expose the enemy to the evil that they had for our entire earth. We thank you for continuing to give the president and the leadership around him the energy to continue to fight for all of us each and every day. We ask for continual protection from the enemy, that you would surround our president and his family. Just protect them each second of every day. We know that they are being attacked constantly by the enemy. Renew their bodies and their minds. We ask all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen. If you like this video, please hit that like button and share. Sharing gets around the algorithms that are set up to destroy this channel. We know that the numbers are always suppressed. Thank you for the great comments below. We love them, and thank you for going to our store and grabbing the shirts and coffee cups and blankets and towels and all that stuff. It's great. Thank you for the great donations on PayPal and to the patrons for the monthly support. We thank you so much. For now, this is LT with And We Know, signing out.